was a rough birthday for a tiny kitten I found yesterday evening. Actually, it was one of my cats, Felix, a big black cat that I own, who helped lead me to this kitten. On one of our daily evening strolls, Felix expects to be walked around the house and yard every evening. And it was during yesterday's stroll it's when we could hear a baby animal's high-pitched cries. At first, I assumed it was the sound of a possum, because we've found a lot of possums in our yard throughout the years. And even upon a closer look, it was hard to get a good look at its face, as it was stumbling among a lot of leaves and muddy patches in a truck bed of half a truck my dad had parked underneath one of our lychee trees. I took a video of it with my phone, and I sent it to someone who takes in abandoned animals. It kept crying, and I still wasn't sure if it was a possum, but was beginning to think it sort of looked like a kitten. My sister brought a flashlight, and I took another video. A part of me kept wondering if its mother would return. Between taking videos and texting the place that takes in abandoned animals, and my brother coming to help too, we all finally realized it was a kitten. The place that takes in abandoned animals said to bring it in, even as it was becoming night. My brother and I took the tiny kitten over, and along the way, my brother drove and I held the kitten in a small box, trying to warm it among the cloths in the box. I got to observe it more closely. Its fur was beginning to dry. More of the mud and leaves came off. It seemed to have a tortoiseshell pattern, my first time holding a little tortie. Wriggling and crying, and sometimes snuggling, just wanting to be warm and safe and fed and held. It looked so precious and helpless. It was a newborn. Part of its umbilical cord was still attached. Its eyes and ears were completely closed, but I think in spite of this horrible way of coming into the world, being likely rejected by its mother, it still is a fighter. It kept trying to climb out of the box during the drive. Sometimes it even sounded like it was purring when it snuggled into the cloths. I miss that tiny kitten, and I'm grateful that the lady that took the kitten in at the place for abandoned animals said she and her sister were going to give it kitten formula and get the kitten warm. And I'm grateful for just the 1 hour the kitten passed through my life. And I'm grateful for how Felix helped me to stumble upon it. It was a chance, in some small way, to know that there's still things that are beautiful in the world. And I miss it because for that one brief moment I got to hold someone so intricately beautiful, the detail in its precious little paws, the tortoiseshell pattern of its fur, the tiny ears and whiskers, all so perfectly designed. It gives testament to a creator who planned this so perfectly. It's also a testament to beauty which still exists in a broken, destructive, hurtful world. In spite of the kitten being so defenseless, it still exists as best as it knows how. It does all it can do. It didn't come into a perfect world at all, and who knows what each day will bring. But I am grateful that I crossed paths with this kitten. And again, it reminded me that there are still beautiful things every day in a world ravaged by human hands, evil minds, destructive, sinful lives, and hurtful, hateful hearts. And how merciful God is to people, how merciful He is to this world, how merciful He is to give each of us another breath, another day to live. No person can take credit for creating such a precious, sweet little creature. And something else that reminded me of beauty that's still in the world. It happened last week. My brother and I were in a shopping center, and we passed by a place with a couple of planters set up on the sidewalk as decorations were near one of the businesses. And what caught my eye was not what was in the planter at all, but what was growing in the bit of dirt in a crack in the cement at the bottom of the planter. It was a small white flower, again so intricate and beautiful, and yet delicate and fragile. Soft white petals blooming simply, and yet majestically in a spot where it just happened to be planted. Anyone could step on it at any moment. It's not in a special planter at all, and yet it grows. So often, God doesn't need to use huge events, experiences, and even miracles to prove that He is God. God often uses little beautiful things like a tiny kitten, flowers, and His still small voice.